The first NABEF Media Sales Institute actually started in 2001. Yet, to really understand the history, you need to know the intentions of the founders.
Well, the idea of the Media Sales Institute really kind of came about as a part of a dream and a hope and a plan. And they all kind of came together at the same time. So I would really think about the start of this with the dreamer himself, and that was Ernie Fears. Ernie Fears was quite a man. He was an exceptional person. Ernie was born in Tallahassee, Florida. That's my hometown. And he grew up there. In fact, there they used to call him Junior Fears. But he was a force to be reckoned with. He was one of my dad's boys. So my father was the head of the physical education department at Florida A&M and the baseball coach. And Ernie played for him, so he always called him one of his boys. But Ernie was a star athlete, so he was not only a baseball player and a basketball player, but a track star. And so when he finished FAMU, he went from there and became a coach. And so he coached in several HBCUs. So he coached at FAMU, he coached at Southern, he coached at Norfolk State. But always he had this idea and this passion to be a team player and to be a motivator and to be someone who pulled other people together. And that's what he did all of his life. He took that kind of that interest in coaching, if you will, and turned it into broadcasting. When he became interested and involved in broadcasting, he started on the West Coast and then eventually came back here to Washington, D.C., where he worked in sales at the ABC affiliate radio station here, and then eventually became the vice president and then general manager of the station. But what he did was he used the same kind of passion that he had always had and the kind of winning philosophy that he'd always embraced and brought that into broadcasting. So he brought the station from the bottom, if you will, of the ratings to the very top. He turned the station around, he changed the format, he did all these kinds of things. But all the time he never really saw other people like him, other people of color who were in the area. So eventually he did a number of things in broadcasting, but in the late 80s he came here to Howard University, starting yet another career, bringing together all of the things that he had done in his own career here to the School of Communications. And he became a master teacher, a master lecturer. And immediately he was the person that students gravitated towards. They loved him. But he taught management, he taught broadcast management, he taught advertising and sales, he taught all of those courses that were a part of the Department of Radio, TV, and Film that had to do with broadcast management. And so it was his idea that there would be a kind of a feeder, if you will, into the industry for people of color.
In 2000, the NAB, Chuck Sherman, who was the president of the NABF at that time, wanted to send a professor from Howard University to a Media Sales Institute in Texas. There were 3 companies, Hearst, Lynn, and Belo. And they wanted to train their newly hired salespeople, and he wanted a professor to monitor that. It would be 6 weeks. So I was chosen. I went down there for 6 weeks and looked at their Media Sales Institute. When I came back, I told Ernie Fears, we can do that. He said, you know we can.
At the time, I was chair of the Department of Radio, TV, and Film. And Vicki said, well, you know, I think we need to bring together some people as a part of our communications conference that we have. So we had a luncheon, and sitting at our table was Chuck Sherman, who was at the time was the president of the NABEF, the National Association of Broadcasters Education Foundation, and also Ernie and Vicki, and several of us were sitting around the table, and we were just chatting, and he asked us about what we were doing in our department. So we started to tell him about this as the largest department in the School of Communications, and as the second largest at Howard University. And he said, well, what would you do if you had money to do some things? And I turned to Ernie and said, Ernie, what would we do? And he immediately began to pour out his dream and of what he saw and what he saw as missing from the industry. He said, missing from the industry are people of color. Missing from the industry are people who have skills to be able to do sales. And missing from the industry are people who are in the pipeline to become managers and to become owners. And so he said, and what I would do would be, and then of course he began to lay out a dream. At the end of that luncheon, Chuck Sherman leaned over to me and he said, send me a proposal and let's see what we can do. And so Vicki and Ernie and I got together and we wrote the proposal that became ultimately the Media Sales Institute.
Chuck Sherman accepted it. Eddie Fritz, who was the president of the NAB at that time, accepted it. So we were ready to do our first institute. Ernie Fears, who knew everybody in media sales in the entire country, he got all of the presidents and the CEOs from these major companies at the time to come and teach the classes. Judy, who has contacts with all of the historically black colleges and universities, got all of them to participate by recruiting from their schools, and I handled the logistics here at the school, housing, food, the program booklets, getting the students signed in once they got here. It was so each of us had our own specific part. When it was time to check in, we had a student come, or a young man come. He was not accepted into the program. I did not have his name. And I said, I didn't know where he came from. And he was very, very, very determined. He said, but that man said, if I get here, I can be in it. And I'm like, what man said this? He said, no, the man said, if you come, you can be in this. And I said, who are you? What man? I said, never mind, it's Ernie Fears. I got on my cell phone. I said, Ernie, who is this student? We don't have a place for him to stay. We don't have meal tickets. We don't have a program booklet. He said, that man, you better get up here right now, find him a place to stay, or help me find him something to eat so he can be in the institute. But that was how Ernie Fears was. If he saw a student that he felt he could help, he gave them a challenge. If they met it, they'd be in the institute.
Well, we knew immediately that what we had to do was to get to work, and we had to recruit people to be a part of it. We had to recruit students who were going to come and to be a part of it, and we also knew that we had to have a faculty. And so the primary person in our for kind of leading the faculty, if you will, was Ernie Fears. And Ernie became the master lecturer, if you will. He became the backbone for everything that we did. And we decided immediately that what we wanted to do was to bring into the Institute those people from the industry who were professionals. And so that we did not use a faculty from the current Howard University Department of Radio, TV, and Film, but we used faculty from the industry. So those people became our lecturers. Each one of them, of course, was kind of co-lecturing, if you will, with Ernie, because in every one of the sessions, Ernie was there. He set it up, he ended it, but he didn't just do that, but he interjected and helped them along to make sure that they were tailoring what they were doing to our students.
He was very successful because of Ernie, and he knows everybody in the entire industry. We had just the top people come and teach these students. After that first year, we learned what would work, what wouldn't work, and every year we got better and better and better. So Judy, Ernie, and I honed the Institute, sharpened it every year, and it is what it is today, and it's nationally known and celebrated throughout the industry.
But this was not just going to be a Howard University thing. What we wanted to do was to be able to assure people in the industry that students were prepared. So we were looking for recent college graduates. But it was also important for us to include other HBCUs, other majority institutions that had people of color in them, so that we could get a cross-section of people from across the country. So the very first one, the very first MSI that we had about 13 or 14 different institutions represented. And so students came from all of those places. And what we did in recruiting was we made contacts with people we knew at those institutions, people we knew and respected. So it may have, all the way from the presidents of the institutions, right on through to professors and deans and other administrators who may have been able to put us in contact with the students. And so for the 10-day boot camp, which is what it was, a 10-day intensive hands-on boot camp, for that 10-day period, then these professionals gave all that they had, and Ernie was the backbone for driving that. The students at the end of that time then were able to showcase what they had learned and to demonstrate what they had learned by presenting scenarios, if you will, to the faculty, and who sat and witnessed this, and then chose them to interview. They interviewed them, and we had a tremendous success rate because a number of them hired the students right on the spot or within the next month or two. So, it was just a tremendous thing.
It's always exciting for me to see the students at the opening ceremony because they're so excited. They have no idea what they're going to go through. I see them at the beginning at this opening ceremony, then I see them at graduation. They are totally different. They have so much information, so much knowledge, so much maturity. You guys are going to be so proud of yourselves at the end of this institute. And I want to tell you, no matter how hard it gets, you stay with it because it is going to pay off. And you have the support of all of the founders, all of the teachers, all of the executives, the facilitators. We're all behind you, and you will make it because everyone who has come before you has done what you've done, and you can do it as well.